John Hurt once said that acting was just a sophisticated game of cowboys and Indians. If that's the case, it was a game at which he excelled. In a career that spans 6 decades and over 100 films, he brought life and humanity to some of the most remarkable characters ever captured on the big and small screen.
My name is John. I'm very, very pleased to meet you.
He was never a heartthrob, but the camera loved him, especially as those features grew increasingly craggy with age. And he was blessed with a voice that audiences couldn't help but respond to, whether it was dealing with fact.
It is a deadly disease and there is no known cure, so don't die of ignorance.
Or whether the words were wrapped around fantasy.
None of us can choose our destiny, Merlin. And none of us can escape it.
I like hearing your voice. What a great tool to have. Have you cultured that? Have you delivered, or is that just the way it has always come out?
No, it's a family voice, really. I mean, my voice is the same as my brother, who's a monk, and my father, who was a clergyman. But then it's all same business, different department, really.
It's selling something in a different way, yeah.
John often said that growing up in a vicarage surrounded by religion always made him feel slightly separate from others. He knew he wanted to be an actor after a school performance at the age of 9, but waited several years for telling his parents.
That was when I was 13, and they sort of said, oh, no, you can't possibly do that, and so on, and you're much too young, and you've got to have an education, and so on. And, of course, to my parents, though they loved the theatre, they couldn't, for the life of them, begin to understand that one of theirs would actually be in it, be the people that you go and watch.
John's reputation would evolve over the years. For a while, he was known as a hard-drinking hellraiser, 4 marriages, hinting at a tempestuous private life. But then he was also, always, the warm, thoughtful figure captured in numerous television interviews, who seemed to gravitate towards playing troubled outsiders and figures from society's fringes.
I've always been interested in the misunderstood. It's the fact that my father was a clergyman and that I was attached to the vicarage, and for that reason you're already set slightly apart from a society, because there's something, because of the nature of religion, it is something which people are superstitious about, and they think, oh, better not say that.
John first gained widespread attention in 1966, playing the villainous Richard Rich in A Man for All Seasons. In 1971, he earned a BAFTA nomination playing Timothy Evans, the man wrongly hanged in 10 Rillington Place. But the part that really made John a star was that of the gay icon and raconteur Quentin Crisp in the groundbreaking TV drama The Naked Civil Servant.
Mr. Crisp.
Stand up.
Have you any other witnesses to character?
About 10, I think.
I am tired of this recital of your praises. There is insufficient evidence to convict.
It was extremely risque at the time. It was a contentious piece, and many people advised me not to do it on the grounds that playing a homosexual was going to end my career, basically. And it was my opinion that though it was, Quentin Crisp was an effeminate homosexual, of which his life was a crusade. But in a sense, that's not what it was about. It was about all the things that went with it. It was about as Robert Bolt put it in a letter to me afterwards, he said, this is about the tenderness of the individual as opposed to the cruelty of the crowd. And that is indeed what it was about. I just knew that it was a superb script. I did. I thought it was wonderful, and it was. It did everything that I love in drama. It made you laugh. It made you cry. It made you think. It was a magical piece. Mm-hmm. It was watched from people from 16 to 80, and changed people's minds about their own personal bigotry and so on. I mean, it really did have a colossal effect.
The world is full of aborigines who don't even realize that homosexuality exists. I shall go about the routine of daily living, making this particular fact abundantly clear to them.
Do you go to these extremes to test yourself, to prove that you're a clever actor?
Oh, God, no, I'm not a clever actor. I mean, all I try to do is to get as near as I can to the truth of the character that I've been asked to play, that I've been kindly invited to play.
Did you make any preparation with Quentin Crisp before you played his part?
I did a certain amount of preparation. I remember I asked him to Sunday lunch a couple of times. I remember also distinctly asking him if he would like a drink, and he said he would like a Guinness. And after he'd had a Guinness, I said, would you like another? And he said, yes. So I gave him another, and then later in the afternoon I said, would you like another? And he said, no, any more would be a debauch. To this sort of extent I knew him, to that extent. You know,
Did you then immediately pick up the way of speaking, because you're doing it now? Did you immediately pick up his pattern?
In actual fact, yes, it's a pattern that I used. Yeah. I didn't really imitate it, because actually it's inimitable. And also it would take forever. But
I noticed in the film that he or both of you, or there in the concealment lights, the art, that you stop before you actually give any answer to a question, almost.
Did I?
Yeah.
Ah.
When you're or he does.
Well, maybe it was clever acting.
It certainly felt that way. But there was more clever acting to come in 1978. In Alan Parker's Midnight Express, based on the true life story of Billy Hayes, John played Max, a heroin addict, enduring a cruel prison regime in Turkey.
Best thing to do is to get your ass out of here. That's where you can.
Yeah, but how?
Catch the Midnight Express.
What's that?
It's not a train. It's a prison word for escape. But it doesn't stop around here.
That performance brought John international acclaim, a BAFTA, a Golden Globe, and his first Oscar nomination.
Certainly for a British actor, it is to be nominated is the most important thing. To win the Oscar would certainly be sugar on the cake, but it is very useful because it does give you a standing in America.
When you're doing a part, I was reading that you don't do much research. You work very much to the script and what the script presents to you. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
So you've really got to then have a marvellous script that really gives you all and the feeling of, because I believe one of the things that Billy Hayes said, which was so amazing when he saw you as Max, that you were so like the real Max in that Turkish prison.
I believe he thought they'd got the real Max back at one stage when he first saw us. Yeah.
And you did that just simply from the script?
It was, yes, it's not entirely my invention, but between the team, you know, with the makeup and costume and everybody, and Alan, and ideas thrown in, that's what we invented.
The success of Midnight Express came when John was going through one of his drinking phases, which were notorious, even though he said they were largely exaggerated.
Your love life and your drinking, what does that mean? I mean, it's...
Come on, well, you got from a point where you yourself said, no, but I was drinking 5 bottles of wine a day.
Yes, I was provoked into saying something. Somebody made me say something which it's amazing how somebody sees one little snippet in a newspaper and then hangs on to that for the rest, for year after year after year, till it becomes decades. And
But did you spend a large part of...
One little remark that I probably made because it was rather provoked, in a sense, sort of saying, you know, somebody was being holier than thou or something, and I made some flippant remark.
So you
which
weren't
might
half
not
cut
even
a lot
have-
of the time? You weren't half cut a lot
No,
of
I
the time
mean,
on the
even if
next
I was,
one.
you wouldn't have known it. You know?
But you stopped
Cleverer
drinking.
than that.
You stopped drinking now, though?
And that was during Midnight Express, which I was both nominated for and got a British Academy Award for, plus several others. So, I mean, it's... and it is true, it's a fact that I did use alcohol on that film. But whether it was 5 bottles, I think that's probably going over the top.
But you recognise this image of yourself as having a turbulent past?
Well...
Or not?
Well, yes, I suppose, yes, it was a turbulent time I lived in, really. 60s. You know, O'Toole, Harris. A lot of those people, you know, they were people that I looked up to immensely, O'Toole particularly. I was watching him on TV from when I was sort of sitting up in Grimsby, you know, wondering how I was going to manage to do what I wanted to do. So I suppose so, yes. But I just think that, you know, too much is made of it in the sense that it's made into like a way of life. That, as though this is the way you live every single day of your life. Well, I mean, it would be impossible to go through my CV if I lived that way. You know, I could have made over 80 million films. Not to mention the theatre, not to mention the televisions. Okay. So I mean, it's unlikely that would be my daily routine. I suppose it's really rather like being at school. When I was at school, if I was out of bounds, I was caught. If I do anything wrong, I seem to get caught. You ask me, am I a victim? Perhaps I am. Perhaps it comes from way back, you know.
John was definitely the victim in one of his next roles. But it didn't come from way back. More bursted out from the front and made him the first person to suffer a gruesome death in the hugely successful Alien franchise.
Was the working process, the experience of making the film, a pleasurable one?
Ooh, science fiction is always a tricky one to say. Of all the genres, I would have said that science fiction was the trickiest, the least enjoyable, really. There's so much waiting, and also with Ridley, at that time particularly. And Ridley was terrified of actors. I mean, the minute you asked him a question, you go and hide behind the camera, you know. So, I mean, it was his first major film. He'd done The Duelist before that, that's all. But it was endless. You'd be in full stuff, full makeup and full costume, and you'd get down there and you'd work out a huge track and this, that and the other and so on. You'd then there'd be a little conversation. They'd decide to change the whole thing, so you'd all go upstairs and you come back. And we did, I mean, 3-4 days in full costume, makeup, without doing anything at all, you know. So you can't say that that's particularly enjoyable.
No. But what an incredible
film.
But
when you were doing it, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, terrific film, I agree.
It was a completely different sort of gruesome that John explored in another Oscar-nominated role. That of John Merrick in David Lynch's 1980 film, The Elephant Man. His unforgettably moving performance revealed to audiences not a monster, but a man, complex and suffering. Somehow he achieved this whilst working under layers of restrictive makeup and without initially a clear idea of his character's voice.
I had not the slightest idea what it was going to sound like. And I didn't have any idea until I was fitted with gums and all the things that add to your imagination.
This is John Merrick. Hello. My name is John Merrick. I'm very pleased to meet you.
I'm very pleased to meet you. How are you feeling today?
I feel much better.
Are you comfortable here?
Everybody's been very kind.
I wanted to play what he dreamt of being. So in other words, that's why I chose a rather kind of middle-class voice, because that's what he dreamt of. He wanted to be part of society, he wanted to be accepted, and I wanted to play that area of him that was like that.
The weight of that thing, presumably, was quite astonishing, the weight of the...
Well, the weight is astonishing insofar as it's very light.
Ah.
It is like, it's like touching solid air. And that was one of the great difficulties of it, because it has to be so accurate when you're putting it on.
There you are now, in full gear there. Were you affected by it?
Affected by it?
Yeah.
Well, yes, in a sense, because it takes 7 hours to put on. So, in other words, you've done a day's work, really, before
What time did you have to be there?
Well, we started at about 5 o'clock in the morning, finished at noon, and then we'd shoot from noon through till 10:30 at night. Mm-hmm. And so, during that period of makeup, though, was probably the best period of time any actor ever had to prepare.
Because you could think about it.
Well, you could think about it, and you could think about John Merrick, yes.
Could you eat?
No, well, you could eat, but at 9 o'clock in the morning was my last meal, which was orange juice mixed with 2 raw eggs through a straw.
Could you hear?
I could hear,
yeah.
Yes. I did manage, actually, you won't like this at all, but I did manage a way to smoke.
With a very long hold, was it?
No, I managed a way of getting the teeth out. I did that surreptitiously in the dressing room without anybody knowing.
Right, right.
Throughout this chapter of his life, John's partner was Marie-Lise Volpierre-Pierrot, a former model. They'd been together since 1967, and after 16 years were planning to marry. But whilst out riding together, as part of John's preparations for the 1984 movie Champions, Marie-Lise was thrown from her horse and died later the same day. Despite the tragedy, John fought through his grief and completed the film. His determination echoed the main theme of Champions, which told the story of Bob Champion, the jockey who famously fought his way back from cancer to win the 1981 Grand National, and Aldeniti, the winning horse that had been written off after a career-threatening injury.
You had a great personal tragedy yourself just before you started the film, didn't you, when Marie-Lise was killed? Did that in any way deter you at all from making the film, or did it, in a curious way, did it help to have suffered as you must have done?
I think the second is probably nearer. I think it made the determination stronger, partly because I know that she would have been deeply upset if I'd turned it down. I mean, if you can, you know, difficult to say that about someone who's died, you know, but in your head you can't help thinking that way. At least I can't help thinking that way. And it just made me the more determined, I think.
What I would have thought was difficult about the film in some ways is that everybody knows the outcome.
Yes, I mean, it could be difficult to say they know the end of Hamlet as well. Admittedly, it doesn't have the same track to go through to get there. But it's certainly, yes, it's a film with immense problems. I mean, we're dealing with cancer, we're dealing with horse racing, we're dealing with an end that you know. And perhaps it's a great arrogance to take on all three at once.
Here at Aintree Racecourse, a few days after the real Grand National, director John Irvin's task is to recreate the atmosphere and excitement of one of the most famous sporting events in the world. Racehorses and jockeys and a cast of 1,000 are mixed together to make it look authentic. As for John Hurt, well, while he doesn't actually have to jump Beecher's Brook, he does have to look convincing.
I've never ridden as a jockey, which is totally different. You disobey all the rules, which kind of pleases my sense of rebellion in a certain sense. You can do everything that the pony club told you shouldn't do, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
Keep the horse as close to the rail as you can. Yeah. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to get you, the horse, and the winning post in on this camera.
Right.
So as tight as you can to the rail.
Yeah. One of the things that chemotherapy, which is the therapy that Bob underwent, one of the things it does, it gives you alopecia. So in order to be able to do that, because of course films are not all shot in sequence, in order to be able to do that, then so I'm bald underneath everything, really. We also have a marvellous wig maker who makes me look infinitely more attractive with a wig on than I do with my own hair, so I'm quite pleased about that too.
Surprisingly, it was Aldeniti himself that John was riding in the film.
actually been up on him first time today, and he is a magnificent animal, not getting away from that. Fantastic, fantastic ride. But I'm not sure that I'd like to be doing the whole race with him, because I think I might finish up in Blackpool, frankly.
Right, now, another 2 lengths and a little more separation between them, Peter.
You mustn't mistake fact for truth. That's basically the thing. You have to make the piece work as if it were a piece of fiction. It has to work on its own right, in other words. You can't just keep saying to the audience, you've got to believe this because it happens to be true. It may be factual, but you've got to find the truth anyway, as you would do even if it were fiction.
Right, start the turn, Leon.
It's an unusual film. Some people say, oh, you're making this cancer movie. Well, it isn't a cancer movie, and there's other people say you're making this racing movie. It's not a racing movie. All of this is part of it in the background and so on. But basically, its main theme is that of courage, I think. It's an upbeat, massive courage.
Champions was one of the 3 big successes John enjoyed in 1984. As well as the Grand National hero, he was a gun-toting professional killer in Stephen Frere's highly praised film, The Hit, and played Winston Smith in Michael Radford's adaptation of George Orwell's classic novel, 1984. The range of skill displayed in these 3 performances earned huge acclaim, and combined, they won him that year's Best Actor prize at the Evening Standard Film Awards.
Your Royal Highness, my lords, ladies and gentlemen. As most of my best friends know, that I'm very easily embarrassed. You probably stemming from the fact that when I was at school, I found it very difficult to come anywhere near the top of the form. And it embarrassed my parents, and therefore it embarrassed me. However, I find it even more embarrassing to find myself in an evening where I seem to have come top of the form in 3 different classes. Certainly, my parents would never have expected me to come top of the form for sport, let alone marksmanship. And the last, certainly they would not have expected me to come top of the form, was history. It seems to me that someone's been playing with the records.
It had been 10 years of hit after hit, and you would probably expect one of the wonderful characters from that period to rank as John's personal favourite. But for him, his best performance came over a decade later in the film Love and Death in Long Island. He played a loner who travels to America to meet a young act he's become obsessed with. To John's annoyance, despite his best work and excellent reviews, the film was largely ignored.
What exactly are you trying to say, Giles?
Look, Giles, I would like to believe all of the things that you said about my career, but you got things all wrong.
Ronnie, listen to me. You don't understand.
Giles, I think I do understand, and I have to go now.
No, how can you act like this? When you know. You must know. How completely, how desperately I love you.
Well, I was upset that Love and Death, that had been so well received worldwide, I mean, and in depth in terms of notices and so on, and certainly in terms of reportage of people that had seen it and talked really, as I say, in depth about it, that it wasn't just a slight understanding of it. I was upset that it was not taken more seriously by the film establishment, such as the American Academy and the British Academy. Because it seemed to me that if you had something which was that well received on the one side, that it should certainly have had caused a little bit more comment in terms of the establishments of film.
But why do you think that is?
I don't know. I have no idea. Certainly, in my opinion, it's one of the best performances I've given on screen. And when you were talking about, you know, do you change? Well, I think you do. how can I say it, you hone your performances to a degree, and you begin to understand more about what a camera can do, and it's to be able to use it, to be able to get you, to be able to take you into the privacy of a life. You know, and it's a kind of lifetime's achievement in a sense, in being able to pull that one off. And also in a script that I think was a brilliant adaptation, taken from Gilbert Adair's book, novella, which was written in the first person, which is known to be one of the most difficult things to translate into a screenplay, for obvious reasons, because you're dealing with the inside of somebody's head. How do you manage to do that? And also without a single word of dialogue. And Richard Kwiatniowski, who both wrote and directed it, I mean, his adaptation was stunning. It was quite brilliant. It was one of the best pieces of writing in film I've ever seen. So, I mean, I was surprised that it was not that having had the acclaim that it had had through, you know, the Time magazine and Newspeak and all of the big magazines and the big papers and so on, with rave reviews, that it was not taken more seriously with the establishments. That's all.
Occasional disappointments like that couldn't dent John's love affair with acting, and he reached a whole new generation of admirers by appearing in 3 huge franchises. There was adventure with Indiana Jones, a spell as Ollivander, the wand maker in Harry Potter, and an appointment with Doctor Who, playing an incarnation of the Doctor himself. It was an inspired piece of casting that left Whovians wishing it wasn't just one way of marking the programme's 50th anniversary.
Anyone lose a fez?
You? How can you be here? More to the point, why are you here?
Good afternoon. I'm looking for the doctor.
Well, you've certainly come to the right place.
Good, right.
Doctor Who provided confirmation where it needed that John had acquired national treasure status. And in July 2015, he became Sir John Hurt, knighted by the Queen for services to drama.
Well, I mean, I'm just very lucky. I like doing what I do. I just like acting. It's really as simple as that. I'm one of the most fortunate people in the world that I've been allowed to do what I really, really love doing and make a living from it.
Just a few weeks earlier, John revealed he'd been fighting a battle with cancer. He eventually lost that battle in January 2017, age 77. Summing up the thousands of tributes perfectly were the words of his wife, Anwen, who said, "John was the most sublime of actors and the most gentlemanly of gentlemen, with the greatest of hearts. It will be a strange world without him."